I was so proud, like 82,000 homes later, I don't believe we bought a single portfolio.
No way.
One by one. This thing could go zoom out way faster than Doug and Colin and any of us. By 2014, I think we went public. It was like, this is the biggest day of my life. At our peak, we were buying like $100 million of houses a month.
Jesus.
I remember my commercial friends in those earliest days, they were like, what are you doing? This is like career suicide. Like, why would you ever?
Welcome to the podcast. My name is Taylor Avakian, and I am here with my esteemed guest, Marco Vartanian. And I said that right?
You did.
Because
brother.
we're Armenian. And I think you're the first Armenian that I've had on the show.
Ooh, legends.
I know. And if you haven't, then I apologize to anyone else, but I'm almost positive. Okay, Marco. So you've had a pretty incredible journey from starting out and taking a portfolio from 2,000 homes, single family homes, to 80,000 homes, and then being acquired by Blackstone, which is crazy. And now you've been acquiring property management companies and grew Fairgrove into 12,000 or 13,000 units under management. Can you walk me through the beginning of, one, how did you start into getting into this real estate space? And then explain to me how you took Invitation Homes from 2,000 to 80,000 homes.
Sure. Huge thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. And I've seen so much of your content, and shout out for all the great work you're doing for us in our business. We do have one goal today. Our singular goal is to have more views than my great friend, John Drachman. So whatever happens today, we have to beat John Drachman. I was texting him on the way over, so I was laughing about it.
He went viral. John went viral.
We're going to beat him. We got him.
I believe it.
A steak dinner riding on this tip.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Anyways,
deal. We're going to make this good.
Me.
Of course.
Yeah, this sort of career evolution. I started in brokerage in 2000. And one of the ingredients I think I'll share today is just the luck and great fortune of being surrounded by these really one-of-a-kind entrepreneurs. And I had the great fortune of going to work for Cushman Realty, which was John Cushman's company. So this was 2000, high-flying. We were the high-flying tenant rep brokers of Los Angeles.
Was this like pre-Cushman and Wakefield?
Exactly right.
Got it.
So John Cushman's the great-grandson of the founder of C&W, and built this amazing tenant rep, the preeminent tenant rep shop in Southern California for office.
Wow.
And kind of through the 80s and early 2000s, and ultimately sold back to C&W while I was there. But you had this opportunity to see firsthand what it took to be a successful entrepreneur, and then blended that with brokerage. And I think there's a common theme. I think of how many guests you've interviewed, and how they go on to these amazing businesses in our industry. But how many of them started in brokerage?
So many.
And like, why, right?
Yeah.
And what's the common thread? Is it grit, hustle, willingness to take risk? And so Cushman was just again, opportunity set that I really lucked into. I grew up in the apartment business, really in Downey, which is where I'm from. But it was following my parents around one small apartment building in Downey. And I just loved it. If you think of any size apartment building, it's really a small business, right? It has marketing, it has operations, it has people. All these ingredients are in play. And now if you extrapolate that across our area, there's literally hundreds of thousands of these small operators in town.
And some run them better than others.
Totally, 1,000%, right? You and I experience that every day. And so the youth of being around that, and then I went to USC, I was in the entrepreneur program there, and I probably would have just dropped out of college and done the apartment thing right away. My parents said, you got to finish school. And so commercial real estate was a way to kind of blend what I was raised with a business degree. And that's what led me to Cushman Realty.
Got it.
And Cushman Realty was fantastic. I loved the craft of real estate. I didn't love selling it though. I just, like, there was something about selling it that didn't feel authentic to me, but I loved the craft of it, and the curiosity of real estate operations was always running through the work I was doing. I ended up doing mostly investment sales work with Cushman Realty and C&W. And then around 2005, had an opportunity to go to work for Rob McGuire. And so that was a short stint. I was only there a year, but again, got to see firsthand like these legendary entrepreneurs. Rob and John were different businesses, one in brokerage, one was obviously a developer and owner here in town, but they were the same guy at their heart. And so there again was those common threads of like, why are these entrepreneurs, like what makes them tick? And then from there, Buchanan Street Partners was where I really learned the language of institutional real estate. And through this time, I was buying my original business plan as a young person. Remember, I got out of school. My original business plan was like I was going to buy one property a year. I was like, okay, if I buy one house or any unit a year for 20 years, this is the
we'll be fine.
This is the aspirations of a 19-year-old.
Exactly.
Right? And by 2011, I had built this small portfolio of rental properties. It wasn't huge, but by day, I'm this like buttoned up institutional commercial real estate executive. But by night, I'm most passionate about these little units that I'm turning and renting. And I'm doing all these things. And I want to segue really quick. I remember a day I was in a meeting. It was at Buchanan Street. We were investment committee. And I had cut my hand. I was probably like 27. I had cut my hand the night before. I was like, God only knows what I was trying to do at that time. And I'm sitting in this meeting and I look down at my hand and there's this cut on my hand. And I think to myself, oh my God, like I'm in this room full of executives. Like, what in the world are you doing with this giant cut on your hand? They thought I had gotten injured in an accident. And it was just this sort of aha moment for me that I needed to figure out a way to get these worlds to collide, and like where was going to be the opportunity set that I was too passionate about what I was doing in the evenings to not make a career out of it. And then around late 2011, a company called Waypoint Homes was buying distressed single family rental homes. They were based in Oakland.
Okay.
And they were really a pioneer. Colin Wheel and Doug Bryan. Doug Bryan was a field goal kicker in the NFL. For like 13 years, totally successful career there, but met Colin in San Francisco and they decided they had this like very like small business plan to buy some houses together. They realized that peak to trough values in houses were significantly higher at that time than apartments. And they asked the question, why? And so I viewed that opportunity and started to like understand that we had done some work. Buchanan, our co-founder of Buchanan, was an early investor in one of their funds. And so I had some exposure to it. It just hit me, Taylor. I was like, this is it. This is the moment. This is the intersection of my worlds. Like it took institutional real estate knowledge, know-how, vocabulary to scale single family rental. But theretofore, single family rental was this like, I mean, it was not institutionally owned at all.
Were you scared? Like, cause that seems like there's many times when you're probably making good money. You have a good portfolio. Like if you stay on this track, whatever you're on, you're probably going to do just fine and keep buying properties every year. Was there a part of you that was fearful, or was the income coming from the properties enough where you're like, I could fail at this and then not work out and I'll still be fine?
I would say half. Okay. And that's the problem with the universe, right? Like the universe doesn't always give you the exact answer. It gives you a portion of the answer. And so I could cover about half of my expenses at that time. We had 2 kids. I was pretty conservative. And remember, I'd buying these for almost 15 years at that point.
Were you putting everything you had in these buildings? Cause like, I'm sure you're making decent money, but it wasn't like it was no money to be able to buy a property unless, were you getting these loans that were 90% LTV? Like,
it was like, I remember I was 24 and I think we had 6 properties at that time.
How much money had you had to put in to own 6 properties?
I mean, it's probably under $1 million. It's probably $600,000-$700,000 at that point.
And were you making, mid 6 figures in the job?
Yeah. So day, like that, the food source was always my career. I was really focused on that. I wanted to be a vice president by 30. Luckily achieved all of those goals professionally. But it was like my passion was in these properties, and it just kept coming back to the operations of it. I love people, and it was like the residents, it was the vendors, it was the community of brokers and escrow and mortgage bankers and like all of it. Like I loved every element of it. So it's just a matter of how do I find, because as you say, like my career had progressed on the commercial side. It's like, well, how do I find something to reconcile those two universes because they were so far apart? And single family rental was it. I remember the first conference IMN put on, a single family rental conference in like 2012. They may have started a year before, but
Yeah.
around that time, like Waypoint was the first institutional operator to get an allocation. I think it was Columbia of all schools, gave us a check to buy single family rental homes.
Wow.
And we had this like interesting way that we could lay off. We would buy, renovate, rent, and once it's seasoned, we could lay off a portion with a banking relationship we had, and then we would then use that to go buy more houses.
What does that mean, lay off?
Well, once you season a property, you're able to basically refi your equity.
Got it.
So you
In a
buy it all cash, renovate it all cash, lease it all cash, and then you can have a takeout with, in that case, it was a bank that gave us, it wasn't like amazing terms, but it was enough to get equity out that then you could go buy more houses.
So you guys were getting equity out on each of these turns. There was
Over time.
Okay.
It was probably like 6 months or so.
Yeah.
So,
but there was enough spread, because right now it's almost impossible to, like, especially in apartments, is what I do most of the time. Like, it is very hard to be able to get money out from a refi. There's not that much juice in these deals unless you just crush it out of the park. Like, it's not happening. And do you see like,
well, going back to then,
yeah,
we were buying houses for like 80 to 150.
Where were you buying them?
I'll use Southern California because I know our audience is more in this area. Predominantly Riverside County.
Oh, okay.
We bought, so that was my initial job, was to like run Southern California. So I leave Buchanan Street, leave behind again what was so safe and secure of what I knew. And I remember my commercial friends in those earliest days, they were like, what are you doing? This is like career suicide. Like, why would you ever trade out? And they were like, I remember a joke, you'll relate to this. They were like, are you going to have your picture on your business card? I was like, why are you giving me beer? Like, I believe in this thing.
Yeah.
And I just knew that like, if you could bolt institutional operations and systems and controls to what was like this way underserved market, this thing could go. And, it zoomed out way faster than Doug and Colin and any of us. By 2014, I think we went public in the beginning of 2013 with Starwood Capital Group. Was our first joint venture partner. Yeah. I remember we went public with 6,000 houses, and it was like, this is the biggest day of my life.
Yeah.
Like, it'll never be bigger than this moment. It was like, and in hindsight, at the end of the ride, 6,000 houses was like one region of the company.
You guys had 80,000 homes.
It's a $22 billion public REIT today, and it was an e-ticket ride of a career.
Holy crap.
Rip through that.
Can you, okay, I kind of want to talk about the logistics of that. So you got to be buying a lot of homes every day, right? How are you finding these homes? How are you identifying what's a good deal? How are you, like, walk me through the logistics of actually growing and scaling something that quickly?
Yeah.
What did that look like?
Yeah, I think we really focused. There were a couple things that went well. We were fortunate to be based in the Bay Area. We were fortunate to be based in the Bay Area at a time where, as we were all healing from the GFC, like we could get the smartest engineers, product builders on the tech side. We also were right in line with the major advent of cloud computing. Specifically at that time, we were on Salesforce. So if we had talked to a bunch of traditional real estate guys and said, I want to scale 80,000 houses and I want to use Salesforce to do it on my front end and maybe Yardi or some back end real estate system on behind, it would be like, that would be like, you'd be speaking Cantonese.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even process it. But being based in the Bay Area was really fortunate. And then the way that we were using cloud computing, it's funny, like COVID hits and like everyone's like, oh, self-showing and all these like autonomous and virtual ways to show property or lease property. And it's like we were doing that in 2012 out of necessity because windshield time, like we couldn't possibly get a leasing person to, at that time, call it 20,000 houses. And so there were those moments back to that IMN conference. The first year it was just like 3 guys and a 6-pack of beer. And then the next year I remember looking around and it was like, why is Citibank here? It's like, what are all these institutional minds? It's literally 1 year later. And that's where it kind of started to click of like, okay, this is,
you're onto something.
Like,
yeah.
this is, and we were really focused at Waypoint, to your question, we were really focused at Waypoint on being the best operator. We wanted to buy at a pace that we could digest. And at that time we had partnered with Starwood. We went public. We were continuing to build. We built that portfolio up to about 15,000 houses.
Mm-hmm.
I was running property management and leasing nationally at that point. And I want to get back to that, why that became important in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But as we were building, we looked over at a company called Invitation Homes, which was actually founded in 2012. They were founded after Waypoint. And they were buying more houses than we were. And Blackstone's mindset at that time was the market opportunity will be finite. You'll have infinitum to figure out how to optimize it and operate it, but the market opportunity will be finite. I think at Waypoint, which ultimately became Colony Starwood Homes, we did a joint venture with what was Colony American Homes, which took us to about 35,000 units. We really wanted to, we were in the digestion business. We wanted to only buy what we could digest. And, in hindsight, I think Blackstone and Invitation had the right strategy because the market opportunity was, it recovered much more quickly than I think we.
So they were just basically like, they didn't even look at it. They just knew the price was so depleted that they really didn't even need to, they would see the property, the price, they'd be like, okay, 3 bedrooms, here's what it's going to be at, purchase contract done.
Peak to trough, replacement costs. I mean, a lot of the same variables we had in all of our careers.
Yeah.
They were just applying it to a $200,000 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Riverside.
Interesting. And so are you buying these one by one from real estate agents, or are you guys going direct to the owners? How do you buy, I'm sure, 100 properties a day, or like, how does that even happen?
At our peak, we were buying like $100 million of houses a month.
Jesus.
And just
like, you can't go even tour that many properties or see any of that stuff. You're just buying off of pure numbers, a spreadsheet.
Yeah. And again, back to like the process and like the ecosystem it took, like we had a fleet of people that were doing this. It started at the courthouse steps. So we were buying all the foreclosures in the earliest. So that was its own platform and group that would go out. We would inspect, we would get the tape the day before of what was headed to auction or foreclosure the next morning. And then we would have this tight window. And so we'd have a property inspection group, and we called them, I think they were called asset inspectors at the time. And they would like drive around to Priuses and try to get eyeballs on any home that was to be sold the next morning. And that would inform kind of our initial offer. And then we had a desk of people that sat behind the computers as it was at auction. They were on the line with the bidding team, and the bidding team was relaying where the pricing was at, and then our analysts were crunching what was kind of the max purchase.
It was like boiler room,
pretty much. And to do that at scale,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
I was so proud. Like 82,000 homes later, I don't believe we bought a single portfolio.
No way.
One by one.
Holy crap.
One by one. Once the auction business faded and that went away first, then we really started embracing the local brokerage community. These are residential brokers. And once we kind of shared with them the speed with which we were transacting, it took off again. And because anything that didn't go to full foreclosure but had a piece of distress, an owner could go to a broker and the broker would say, I can have you out of this in 48 hours.
Yes. And you're done.
Yeah.
Jeez. So those tech companies that ended up spinning up, like I forget what they're called today. They may still be around, but the companies who Open Door
Buyers.
Yeah, iBuyers. Was that post you guys or
It was.
Okay.
And a lot of those folks they hailed from our early
Got it. So they were part of the company. They're like, hey, we can do this, better, or
self-show companies that you name them.
Everything spun
a lot of the tech,
what you guys were doing.
Tech and other adjunct businesses resulted from what single family built.
Jeez. Okay, so you're building this, and this is over what, 8-10 year period, something like that. 6 years. You go from 2,000 to 80,000 with a lot of these, mergers and stuff like that. Then you exit that company, right? Walk me through that.
Yeah, just by the end. So the co-founders, Colin and Doug, they left. They left when we did the Colony deal, and what I think we all realized is there are entrepreneurs who love building enterprises, and there are a whole host of other executives in our industry who like running large, in this case, public REIT operations, and they're in total polarization of one another. I mean, like neither one understands what the other one is thinking.
It's like startup founder versus public company.
Yeah. And so by the end of 2018, from 2012 to 2018, it was like, can we operate these houses at scale and deliver recurring revenue? It's funny. I remember our CEO, Fred Tuwami, he used to say, we need to turn this into a boring business every day. He's like, we want this to be the most boring, repeatable, and he was an EQR guy. And that was always our battle cry. It was like, how do we make this just a set and forget it business? And, coming from a Buchanan, like we were like more like equity placement guys up to that point. We liked obviously the buy sell. We thought we could buy them at a good basis in those earliest days. We thought, well, we'll just put them on the shelf. Like this can be great. We can buy these. They're way below replacement costs. It'll be easy. And then it was around, I took over solely property management nationally. I think it was about 2000, mid to late 13.
Okay.
And that was when we realized, okay, the business actually starts when you lease the house. That's where the real business was.
Interesting.
Buying it is great. Renovating it, you can do leasing it. But the operations that came with it that's where all the complexity is in that business.
It's just the man.
And always has been.
Yeah.
Think of how many buildings you've sold to an owner and
they
call you a year later and it's like, it's a mess.
Yeah.
Because the business starts when you close.
Got it. Okay. So you were operationalizing that aspect of it.
Totally.
And then walk me through the exit.
Yeah.
And then
so back to the exit, I just by 18 felt like, we had solved the thesis. We had built a boring business of a $20 billion public REIT, and we had moved to Dallas, and all the while when we were scaling this single family rental business, I kept thinking about my parents' property and the types of buildings we have in Southern California. Southern California is second only to New York for highest concentration of small unit apartment buildings, right? So these are mid-sized buildings. Think like 10 to 150 unit buildings. Pick any market in SoCal.
All of them.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? Every street has these properties. And I kept thinking, we built, I think we were in like 24 markets at Invitation. That was out of necessity because, there was only so much product we could take down. But I kept thinking about, what if you could imply all of the IP that I had really built and designed from 2012 to 2018 in the ops side? I'm like, what if you just deployed even 25% of that toward mid-sized multifamily? And where would you do it? You would do it in Southern California. And so that's what started. It was probably around, I would say 18, it was probably a year there. I was still at Invitation, but I kept wrestling with like, well, why wouldn't And then the other piece that started to come into play is I was almost 40 years old. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I came through the entrepreneur program, as I said, and it was like, it's kind of now or never.
Yeah.
And so I actually moved back to California. So I left Invitation and moved back to California. And my initial thesis was that we would just do a small equity fund and buy, again, those 10 to 100 unit buildings. Why no one had institutionalized it was kind of the thesis. And I saw so many analogs to what we did in single family, like high fragmentation, like unsophisticated owner base. Like it kind of had a lot of the same attributes. And so my initial thesis was like, I'll just go do a small multi-fund. I promised my wife I would take 6 months off. Scaling a business to the level that we did at Oldco, it does take a toll, through your late 30s.
For sure.
I have a young family.
So
yeah.
I imagine that when that thesis came to fruition, so you had the 6 months off, you decided to go and do this. I think I know the answer to it, right? Because I know where you're at now. And I see it even in today's market. Like Los Angeles is still 85% small mom and pop.
Yeah.
So like there's clearly a reason why it doesn't work in the small mom and pop, or at least it hasn't worked yet. What ended up happening? Did you pivot from that, or like give me that story, because that's interesting to me.
Yeah, I'll go quick. I started underwriting apartments, and this was 19. Like values were high, some they are now. Obviously, you had a different financing market, but it started as I just was saying, like, gosh, okay, great, I can buy a 4.5 cap. If everything, I can get positive ARB on my debt. If everything goes right, I can dump out a 6.5 or a 7 current. It's like everything really had to go right. And as I started talking to equity investors, they said, Marco, we understand your operations background. We totally understand your ability to scale this. We're really excited to hear about your infrastructure. And that was the moment on those calls where it's like, I didn't have one. It was like me and my laptop. Right? So I thought, well, what if I just manage some properties for other people? Because that'll ultimately give me an infrastructure to then be able to build an investment management platform. And so then I just set down that path of like, well, I'll just take on some, how hard could this be? I'll pick out some fee owners. And I had all this ops background from Oldco. And I knew if I could bring the right mix of people, process, and tech forward, that I could have a compelling value proposition for owners, mid-size owners. And I never would have thought that would become the business, but that is the business today. And I continue to buy on my own, but we haven't stood up the investment management business. And so it's odd. Like I've spent more time in my career on the ownership side than the client side. And the client side's different.
Do you think it's because after running a property management company, because I commend you and every property manager that I know, like no one likes property management. Most owners don't like their property managers. But property management, you're dealing with tenants and it's tough. It is a tough business, right? Was there something where the money became such like, okay, I can see a path to growing a huge property management company that we're kind of already doing, and my operational skills allow me to go and expand that quicker versus building the base and then going and doing this investment stuff? Because to me, the reason that I don't think multifamily in Southern California is institutionalized is because of rent control. And because in single family homes, you have the ability to then, if you're doing them for rent, right? Because you guys were renting them out, you weren't flipping them and selling them, right? So if you're going for rent, you're capped at your ability to increase the value of these properties because of regulations. And so you can't, like, everything, like you said, has to go right. And when there's these businesses like property management or single family homes where there isn't this ceiling on what you can do, you have the ability to scale that much higher. Did you feel that, or did you see that, or did it just naturally occur that way?
I think some of it went back to, what risk are you taking? And it was more about cycle risk.
Interesting.
Thing, because if you look at like my background, right? the reason Invitation Homes became Invitation Homes is because we were able to we got outsized returns
It was the timing was right.
during with cycle risk, right? Cycle risk was low because values were so low. And I just think my entry point in 19, like there was no cycle risk in small multi, and small multi was so much more durable through the GFC. It just didn't, like, its peak to trough was probably like 20%.
Yeah.
And so I looked at, if I build a services company, I'm taking operations risk, but I'm not taking market risk. And I think when you look at apartment owners, operators who struggle, they've typically taken on both at the same time. So Buchanan, we just learned Buchanan was such a unique place to learn the craft of risk and risk management because of our institutional equity investors and partners of that business. Tim Ballard used to crush us in investment committee of like, what risk are you taking? Either take market risk, take operator operations risk, or take geography or asset risk, but do not take all three simultaneously. Like, pick one.
So that's interesting to me because obviously the way that institutions look at risk, like they have a lot on the line. There's a lot of money on the line. Sometimes they get ahead of their britches, right?
Sure.
As we've seen market risk and timing risk over the last 5 years, 6 years. What do they do differently than a small mom and pop or a smaller firm? Like, how do they approach risk? And you were kind of getting into it with the different buckets, but like, can you dive in a little bit deeper into the psychology behind looking at that? How do they analyze it?
Yeah, and as I shared earlier, like, really don't just say I'm taking market risk. Like, what type of market? Are you taking rent control risk? Are you taking geography risk? So really assess that.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was interesting about with the big institutional equity partners at, I'll say Oldco through the Waypoint ride, what I learned there is large institutional equity investors, they will create a thesis. In that case, it was, we believe single family rental homes are undervalued today based on replacement costs, supply and demand fundamentals, et cetera. And once you have conviction around that thesis, the largest institutional equity investors, they then want to peanut butter the entire country, the entire board with that thesis. So once Blackstone's like, this is the lane we're in, we believe in this thesis strongly, they then leg into it in a massive way.
Got it.
So I believe today the reason small multifamily has not institutionalized is because, as I said, it's second to only to New York, but the attributes of a Long Beach that has hundreds of mid-sized multifamily buildings, that's unique to Southern California.
So you can't do that across the country.
If you said take that same thesis to like Nashville,
I
mean, there's some areas of Nashville that have mid-sized apartments, but they don't have thousands upon thousands of them like we do here.
So the TAM isn't there.
That's right.
Interesting.
But if you want to build an operating company,
the TAM is there.
Services company called Fairgrove Management that operates from San Diego, call it to Santa Barbara, the TAM is.
Got it.
There's more rooftops, but rental rooftops.
100%.
For my company today than I'll ever need to look up, because I'm not necessarily needing to derive a yield. And that was the interesting thing about single family. Like, as the markets snapped back, what we talked about earlier, where Blackstone said, hey, this is a finite opportunity, we had to push eastward, right? So we started in the Bay Area, then we bought everything we could in SoCal. Then we moved to Phoenix, Vegas, Colorado. We ended up with 25,000 homes in Florida.
Wow.
But as you're satisfying yield and the markets were recovering, we had no choice but to migrate farther east. And when I look at my business today, like, I don't have that constraint.
Yeah. There's more than enough. Like, you'd have to be massive to be. There's millions and millions of apartment buildings across the country.
There was like one other piece of this riddle that we learned from Oldco, which was the more density of houses, of units we could have, the higher the density, the more efficient the operations, the higher the margin by region. And so
economies of scale, basically.
Exactly. And so once I thought, well, if I have that in SoCal, the density of rentals is so high here. So it's like it totally rhymed with what we were doing there. And I thought I can, apply that here. The last ingredient was, to you and I, Southern California seems obvious. It's like where we're from. So like you can visualize, I'll stay with Long Beach versus Downey versus Whittier.
Yeah.
Right? You can visualize that. But if you and I sat down with, let's say it was an East Coast real estate investor and never spent any time in SoCal, you tried to explain it, it's actually a really complicated market.
Interesting.
Just because of all the different areas, you have rent control, you have submarket risk. It's a very complicated market to
street by street, even.
Totally. Yeah. You could spend your whole career in one place, like Long Beach. We'll stay with Long Beach. You could spend your whole career.
Oh man, if you don't know Long Beach and you just buy in the city of Long Beach, you're different buildings, man, different areas. It is so diverse. And so that's super interesting because you the boots in the ground, the knowledge, that specificity of understanding your market better than anyone else, you have to have that in SoCal. Otherwise, you've seen people come from Chicago and New York and they buy these portfolios. And I've seen it the last 3 years, like they lost a ton of money in these apartment buildings because they didn't understand the fundamentals of who's renting them, right?
Yeah.
People want parking or they don't want parking, or how much rent you can get here, or even the regulatory risk. Those are some of the things you can't necessarily predict in terms of if they're going to lower the amount in the county of Los Angeles from 5% to 8% to 1.5% right now in rent increases. You can't predict that, but also you got to know that LA is a regulatory heavy place.
That's right.
And you got to buy right in LA. You have to buy right in LA. Otherwise, I just don't see it. You don't make money unless you buy right.
And that was really, so in my hip pocket, as we're building the operations platform for Oldco, in my hip pocket, I'm thinking about SoCal and what we know about it. And as we're building out the people, process, and tech for these 80,000 units, I kept thinking there's so many attributes that are sitting in our backyard. So I thought, well, if I can just take a lot of that IP and deploy it just in this market.
Got it. Is that still on the horizon for you potentially? Could you see that being the case with now your infrastructure of the property management?
Yeah, we continue to build. It's cool that we're probably using about a third of our playbook from Oldco.
Okay.
Because there are certain attributes of, our largest property is, I think, 270 units.
Okay.
We've scaled up beyond single families.
Yeah.
So there are components that are easier in some ways. You have on-site staff, and so the operating rule is slightly different. But so much of it we've been able to deploy. I think the thing I'm most excited about is some members of our executive management team have joined from Oldco.
There we go.
It's been fun. And
can you pull back the curtain as to the actual operational side of a property management business? Because I know a lot of property managers, and I would say it's not a tech heavy or operational, they're not 80,000 homes operations specialists, right? They're just property managers, and they do things kind of the old mom and pop way. So what is the actual, pull back the curtain of what goes into building an efficient property management company?
The best property management company is really split in half. And if you think about it, it's an operations resident, facing day-to-day, boots on the ground, servicing units, whether that be turns, leasing, resident, ongoing resident feedback business. So that's one half. And then the other half is effectively an accounting firm, because it's paying thousands of bills, it's reconciling books each month, it's sending out distributions, it's making sure that debt covenants are met, it's paying property insurance, on time. And in most small mom and pop management companies, they try to treat it as one, but they're very separate business. They're so different disciplines. And without scale, how could you do that? So typically a mid-size or small management company, the proprietor or that team is trying to be equally proficient at being up to speed on AB 1482 as they are tying out general ledgers and sending out cash flows.
And new laws, and you got to take photos now.
How could one person or one small team possibly keep up with all of that?
Yeah, you can't. So you're an owner and a manager too, right? Let's say I wanted to go and just be the best owner, but also I manage my properties like, like a professional, like an institution. How would I set up let's say I have 5 properties.
Sure.
How would I set it up so that I run those efficiently as possible and like a professional?
Yeah, I think it starts with your PMS, your property management software.
Okay.
So, my company uses Appfolio. We've had a great partnership with Shane Trigg and that team. They've been awesome to us from the beginning. So without that access, pick one. The PMS.
Yeah.
There's a bunch out there. And then meet your resident where they are. And what I mean by that is today's resident, they want a touchless, frictionless way to interact with us. They want to select a unit on their terms. They want to visit the property when they want to visit it. It's this Uberization of our resident in today's market. And that's a hard transition for someone who maybe has owned their units for a lot of years. And so I'd say get with, the next gen around you that are, modernizing systems and controls. So that would be one. And then 2, make sure you have a really good, banking partner that can help you set up your rails to, do all your billing and invoicing and payments, et cetera. And then the last piece, and probably the most important piece and toughest to land, is the people. And so, with a portfolio of, call it 5 properties, you're going to need a bookkeeper and you're going to need a property manager. As I said earlier, I would stay very focused on splitting those activities because they're so different.
Interesting. What are some of the things that you do to modernize an apartment? Like you take over a property. It's an old mom and pop. They owned it for 50 years. And you're like, hey, we're going to make this efficient. Yeah. Right. You're going to spend a little bit of money modernizing your apartment, but you're going to like it. Like, what do you actually go do to the property?
From physical?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. In today's market, I would say even pre-COVID, it's starts with safety and, safety, security, and we call it functionality. We always focused on this in my last company. It was like, are we making aesthetic improvements or are we making functional improvements that will, be a better product? Anybody can put a coat of paint on it and the coat of paint peels. And, and so because of the high rental rates in Southern California, our residents value clean, they value safe, and they value functional. So the garbage disposal has to work. It just does. And that's back to function. They would rather have that than some fancy can lighting.
But are you putting in are the locks, right? Are the locks tech enabled? Are there AC that, are they paying through Zelle? Are they paying through one system? Like, what are the actual, can you get into that detail?
Of course, yeah. So payments, resident communications, like work order management, work order administration, as far as like, when's the maintenance person going to be in my unit? How do I set up that appointment? All of that's happening with technology. There was a big push through single family into smart locks and smart properties and, the IoT. There were so many of those companies that spun up.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like the resident they like them when they're there. Some percentage will pay for them. We use them because it makes us more efficient as an operator.
Got it.
Because it, obviously standardizes a bunch of stuff for us. But I wouldn't say today the Southern California resident is demanding that.
Got it. What are they demanding?
They are demanding frictionless interaction.
Okay.
They're demanding, I don't want to have to meet you to give you my move-in funds. I don't want to have to come to your office ever. I don't want to have to sit in some call queue to get a hold of you.
Yeah.
They're demanding a white labeled app that allows them to really frictionless interact with Fairgrove. And the challenge for us as a company is it has to be omni-channel because we have some residents that they're not there with us yet. Maybe they're a bit older or they're not as tech forward. And so we have to staff, call center for them to call. Then we have others who want to text. And so we have to have a whole text,
Wow.
system behind the scenes that then ultimately all this funnels into a work order management system. But so much of this, again, is design and infrastructure that we learned from Oldco.
Got it. How do you think AI is going to affect property management and the real estate business?
Yeah, I think it'll be good. Ultimately, you're seeing, so when we talk about the property management business, you're seeing private equity has really waken up and said, "Gosh, we love these recurring cash flow businesses." And so you're seeing that with accounting firms, management firms,
These roll-ups, all this stuff.
and I think the bet there is that your labor costs will come down with AI. Any industry that has a high percentage of labor as an expense line, as a percentage of the revenue, is ripe for that. So I think AI will help that. The asterisk on it will be just the variability. I mean, if you think of our, call it 10,000 plus units, and the variability of your residents, the variability of their properties, the variability of the location of their properties, I think over time AI will get better and better. We really think of AI and technology at Fairgrove as more of an enabler than a replacer.
Okay.
So you saw a lot of tech companies get, big valuations over the last 5 years to, create this emporium of technology around things like property management and real estate. But they were really trying to replace, full replace. If you're an owner, how do you get a hold of? We still want that touch.
Yeah, the human touch, the human element.
And the residents do too.
Yeah.
It's funny, I was just at a conference this week and someone from Greystar was speaking. And I'm always interested to see well, what are the 900-pound gorilla and they said the same thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Of course, you're legging into it.
Yeah.
As a mid-size operator today, my company is in the R&D business. So we have to leg out all of these, whatever the app is or whatever the technology or the AI. So we have to try this stuff and we pilot things, and then we, some of it works, some of it doesn't, because you don't know today who the winners and losers are. But you have to be ready and nimble enough to adopt this stuff because it's happening fairly quickly.
What are some of the are you using AI chatbots for that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
Soon calling is going to be an AI thing, right? Someone's going to be able to call in and talk to an AI, and they're going to say, "My garbage disposal is broken," right? And the AI is going to ask it questions, and then it's going to go schedule with your guy who comes out, your maintenance man, and that'll all be done with AI. That is 100% going to happen in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. Are you guys testing out some of that?
We are.
Stuff?
And there's some fantastic companies that are,
who should I be investing in is what I'm saying. Where's my alpha?
Snapped is doing some really cool stuff on the leasing front.
What do they do?
Smart Rent. Snapped is doing leasing.
Oh,
a lot of it is front of kind of funnel.
Got it.
Because you're getting hundreds of leads. Well, how do I figure out who are the best leads? How do I figure out who are ready to act right away?
Let me ask you something real quick, actually.
Yeah.
I just was yesterday at a lunch with some owners and some broker friends of mine, and they all own properties, and they were saying one of the biggest issues they have is a lot of these applications are they're fraudulent, right? These credit scores are not real, and you have all these people how are you supposed to confirm all this information that this tenant is saying they're doing what they're saying, and at scale at 13,000 units, right? You probably have so many coming in. Are you using any technology to stop leasing fraud?
Tons of companies have spun up to do that. We're seeing less and less of it.
Okay.
We saw tons of leasing fraud in the earliest days of self-showing. We're talking 2013.
Got it.
But those base property management softwares, AppFolio has gotten really good. Our screening rails run through AppFolio because everyone views this as, it's not existential, but because of the regulatory environment, especially in Southern California, if you rent to the wrong or you put someone in fraudulently, it'll take, months to a year
for sure
to get someone out. So tons of companies out there doing that. The other thing we talked about earlier is you just IoT. So Smart Rent, that was a company it was our chief technology officer started that business.
Wow.
Rently was very early. All these companies started in single family, but now they're like, they're serving the apartment business. So that's big. And then I think the key will be over the next few years, though, is the data's got to be good, because the AI is only going to be good as good as your data is. And so if you think of the like reams of data my company or companies larger than mine are gathering, everything I'm hearing in the industry right now is like, get your data ready over the next couple of years, because the winners and losers are going to smoke out in prop tech.
Totally.
But if your data is not right, you're not going to be able to take advantage of all that software.
So that's interesting to me. And I think about data as well, because when I'm valuing property, there's certain steps that I do when I'm evaluating a property, right? I have to understand the comps. I have to understand where the market rents are. I have to feel confident in my assumptions. How am I going to get there? All that stuff. And I have to come to an owner and say, hey, here's where I think the value is based upon everything that I know and all of my conversations and data with people. You have a very unique advantage because you have all the rents for so many of these properties, which my mind goes to, okay, if I know where the rents are, then I know I have enough data to figure out where values are for these properties. Is there any sort of like play there and you being able to use the data for the rents to then make investment decisions based upon that?
I mean, clearly people have been using rent data to make investment decisions since the beginning of time. I think the risk, the asterisk on this, and you're seeing it in the market right now with Infrada, and there's a bunch of noisy stuff going on this, is you could potentially have enough information to price take very well. I mean, you would be able to have inside information that is not public information, but information that you could use to inform decisions. And so I think from a zip code perspective, we're able to say, hey, here's what we think average rents will be based on this property type. But it's still, as you said, it's like street to street. You're still not going to be able to get, I guess if you owned enough buildings on that street, you could then.
Got it.
But similar, like when we're all using, whether it's GPT or any AI now, they're really good at giving you these like bumpers and ranges. But I always find that like it doesn't fully land the plane. The question will be, does it? Like, I don't know. In 2 years from now, do they have that street level?
Yeah. It's the visualization too of the finishes and what people want and the layouts, and like, apartment layouts actually matter in terms of what you're going to get for rent. And is there enough parking? Is it too cramped? Like there's a lot of these weird things that are humans, what they desire and what they're willing to pay for, that you have to take into account in terms of what you can get for something.
And what was interesting, and we learned this in single family, is when you're buying something, let's say you're buying a 12-unit apartment building, let's use something small. And you're competing with 4 other buyers, and you're purely cash flow focused. It's a return. It's a cash flow instrument. There could be 3 other buyers that have some other non-economic interest in pursuing the property, and they're going to pay more than you will because he owns the building next door, or she is a nanny and has a nanny business that runs through it. She's going to rent 3 of the units to her nannies or what. And so that was the challenge with single family, is like we were looking at as the company evolved and we were in the later cycles of our acquisitions, there were non-economic variables. People buy houses to live in. And so
I'm making it as a financial return perspective.
Where I could 120 unit building is like, we all know everyone's looking at basis points and cost of debt. And
interesting. What is the trajectory for you in Fairgrove? Like, do you want to continue to roll this up? What is the ultimate vision for?
We've acquired 8 small management companies, which has been about 50% of our growth. It's the organic growth, that other half, that I'm most proud of, because anyone can go acquire management, overpay for, cash flow instruments and screw them up. The organic growth is the validation in the marketplace. Like, okay, we're doing good work. I think our company's 25,000, 30,000 units in 3 to 5 years. of fee. I do think we'll have an investment management practice at some point in our evolution, but I want to be the best at this niche. What's that saying? Like niches make riches. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We get calls all the time to do HOA or commercial based on our commercial backgrounds. We're just like laser focused at this one piece of the puzzle. I think in today's market, people have said, well, have you scaled, we've been at it a little over 5 years, and like, have you scaled this business like this? And I think there's so much clutter in the market, and so many operators are trying to be this emporium where they want to manage it, they want to buy it, they want to sell it, they want to provide a bunch of services. We want to be laser focused on just this thing. We're never going to sell property. We're not going to finance you.
Yeah.
It's just this piece.
Yeah.
And I think that's really helped us cut through the clutter.
Got it. To know where you need to focus, because focus is the biggest thing that distracts people from growing something really incredible. Is the shiny object syndrome.
Right? Yeah, and it's hard to say.
It's really hard, especially when the bigger you get, the better the opportunities come to you.
And we have, as I said, we get pitched to do commercial or buy HOA management. And heretofore, it's like, I think we're in the like third inning of what we're building. I get this question a lot of, oh, are you just rolling this up? Like, this is a classic PE. You're just going to roll this up and sell it. And I want to say with certainty, no. Like, I had a great job.
Yeah.
I worked for this large high REIT, and this is legacy work. Like, I love this business. I love being home in Southern California. And I spent 8 years on a plane building Old Co. And my daughter's just starting college. And
wow.
My dream is that one of my kids or all of them could be a part of our company someday.
I know running a business is not all sunshine and roses. So like, what are the things that actually keep you up at night? What are the things that you have to worry about growing a big property management company like this?
Yeah. Someone told me years ago, there's a difference between building a business and an enterprise. And I think when you run a business, you're like there all the time, and you're, versus an enterprise runs with other people. It has systems and controls. And I think the biggest challenge for me is like, at our size, I can't know every owner interaction. I can't know every resident interaction, the mistakes that get made, and they do. It's a tough business, as you say.
Yeah.
And so the thing that keeps me up at night is like, what are those like basic things, or, I can say with certainty our company in the time we've been talking today, we've made a dozen mistakes.
Yeah.
We've done 50 things really well too. So, so it's those, those, how do you get better? And I think it's just that, this is the torture of being an entrepreneur, that you just have this burning desire to get it right every day. And we're quick to recover. I think we do a good job at the outset. Any experienced apartment owner knows it's not a game of perfect in real estate operations for multifamily. And I think we're pretty transparent about that. It's really about trust. And so that's the thing that keeps me up at night, is that. And then risk management, as you said, in today's world, in our markets, they're, highly, there's tons of legislations every day. And so, those things, just how do you maintain risk management?
Yeah.
We learned a lot of this from
your previous
company,
stuff.
but
What do you think's the most unobstructed, or how do I phrase this? What part of real estate needs the most disruption, or where's the biggest opportunity?
I just think back to there's an ocean of real estate services businesses that support what we all do. And so I think any real estate services, whether it's HVAC, plumbing, cleaning, I mean, these are like business lines that no one wants to do. They're not sexy. You and I didn't get our triple MBAs to like, I didn't ever foresee that I'd be doing what I do today. I love it. But the point is, there's this giant chasm between the haves and the have-nots in the ecosystem that supports multifamily apartments across the country, candidly. And the tech companies and prop tech get all the headlines because they're getting high equity multiples on their valuations, and it's sexy. But I mean, somebody could disrupt flooring. So, I mean, if you think of like apartment cleans,
Yeah.
I laugh at our business. I talk to our head of maintenance about this all the time. I'm like, I think the highest margin opportunity across my whole business is to just clean apartments.
Really?
Like, we pay so much to turn, once you turn a unit, it's clean.
Yeah.
And I look at like the cost of labor to deliver that. And granted, that business has its own challenges.
For sure. It's a people business.
But it's such a simple thing that
the
like
margin is
no
so
one
big.
has perfected.
No. Well, and I think so.
That's an analog to what we're talking
For sure. But I totally get what you're saying. And I think the reason why is because there's like 3 different buckets of businesses that you can have. The software business, right? You build it once and it's infinitely scalable, basically, right? Then there's businesses that need capital, and then you have tech in there that's as well. And then you have the people aspect, which is if you have all 3 of those, then you have a business that's very hard to run because nothing in those can be automated to a level that's almost like hands off, which is why software trades at such high multiples, because private equity will pay for something that's automated. What I think you were mentioning and where the opportunity is those businesses that are they're people driven, right?
Yeah.
And they're hard to scale without the addition of people. So then you become a people business and running that infrastructure that then provides the service to other businesses to get paid, right? And so I think if you can build those rails, that infrastructure to be able to run a people first business, like plumbing, like any of that stuff,
business, but
but then there's opportunity there. But I think it's hard when you have to manage people and not software.
Totally. And the other element is just look for durable recurring cash flow, because you're willing to deal with people stress if you have this, again, instrument that has durable recurring cash flow, so you can focus your energy there. If you think of like building a tech business, you basically like sinkhole how much X for years and years with the hope certificate that it becomes. So you're taking a different type of risk, back to what we talked about at the outset. So I'm willing to take a bit more people risk because I have a very stable base of revenue.
Got it.
It's a pretty reliable business from a cash flow perspective.
What goes into building a really good people business? How do you build a good
That's such a cool question, man.
company?
Culture.
And what does that mean? What's the definition to you of culture?
Yeah. Authenticity. Yeah, if you're real and your team knows in the middle of the night if there's a problem, you're going to be there as fast as you can with them on that wall, as we say. It's rocket fuel. Like, it's unstoppable. We have a little over 200 employees, and my job every day is like, how do I influence them and get that desire and passion and
Ownership.
Thank you. How do I get that to trickle down to an on-site manager who works part-time and lives at a 40 unit? And the way you do it is through as many messaging forms as you can. And so I'll give you an example. We do a monthly all hands call, and that's not unique. But after 5 years, I do, it's like 60 of them. Like, there are days where I'm like, another all hands. But I always think about, we start our all hands with our new associates. And I always think like, okay, it's not his 60th, it's his first. And it's not her 60th, it's her second all hands. And that is my cue. Like, I've got to show up and I've got to bring it, because Sarah, she's never heard this. They don't know anything about Marco or Fairgrove. They got to feel it. And when they feel it, guess what? The other, it really happens. The other piece that's really fun to watch is, done right, culture runs itself. And what I mean by that is, when I see a 3rd-year manager and they're onboarding someone and they're training them and they have that conviction, it sounds almost like as if I'm talking to them. then you're like, this is
You
it.
did it right.
Yeah.
What is your day-to-day look like now? Like, where are you spending your time in the business?
Yeah, I love that. If you're successful as an entrepreneur, your goal is to like slowly remove what I'll define as like in the business.
Key man risk.
Yeah. But in the early days, you wear every hat, right? And what's fun is as you evolve and if you have success with a company that you've built, little by little, you get out of the things that you did. I'll give you a quick example. We hired our HR person. We were about 50 employees. And I remember I wrote her offer letter and I sent it. And I thought to myself, I'll never write another offer letter. And I haven't had to write one since because the day that she joined, she now works that. And she has a team of people that do HR related things.
Sure.
And so little by little, you get out of the day-to-day and in the business. The trick is then you have to quickly pivot to strategic planning. So we'll call that on the business. So I'm trying to spend 80% of my time on the business. So I'm in long-term strategic planning, making sure that our executive management team is organized properly, making sure that they're motivated. The other piece is I said HR, I'll stay there because I believe for us to get from where we are today to, let's say, 4X over the next 3 to 5 years, like it will come down to people, process, and tech and our ability to standardize as much of that as we can with, as you said, people. So I spend the majority of my time in the field. Today, when I head back, I'm going to hit a property and it's just, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
I think, and they have to feel the energy that you have for your business. And then you have to be loyal to them. We pay more than anyone, I believe, in our area for the best team. You look at the best companies. I want to be the New York Yankees, the Irvine company of this niche. And to do that, my payroll's higher.
How do you find A players?
Just that way. You have to pay well, provide good, value. But it's a small industry. Like when people see that I'm building a modern, scaled, fee management business across Southern California and it has momentum and energy, they want to be a part of it. I saw this at Buchanan Street. We did a really good job there. Robert Brunswick, who founded that company, used to talk about Mo. And he's like, once you get Mo, it rips. And we got Mo at Waypoint.
What's Mo?
Momentum.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once you get a little Mo.
Interesting. Okay. So once you get the juice, then things start, the flywheel goes.
I think we're just starting to hit the J curve of our growth. The challenge is I don't want to grow for growth's sake.
Yeah. You need the infrastructure to make sense.
Totally. And, it's funny, as of the last like 2 or 3 years, I'll get owners say, well, you're too big. I wanted a midsize, or you guys you've grown so much. And I think to myself, well, isn't that what you would want? Like, I never want to call a contractor who's like, hey, I'll be there tomorrow morning. It's like, you want to call a contractor who's like, hey, I can get to your project because I'm busy, because I'm good at what I do.
Yeah.
And so, if I didn't think I could serve a customer at a high level, then I wouldn't take on the account.
Yeah. What's the minimum that you guys makes sense for you to take on building size?
16 units and up, just because it has
60.
16.
16.
And up,
okay.
just because you have on site,
got it.
personnel, which our operating model is really geared to that. But then we have a host of other owners who maybe have 34 plexes. That's a great owner for us too, because they have critical mass and we're able to staff that in a way with them.
Got it.
We do manage about 900 single family homes. So I haven't been able to fully get away.
Who are those investors, like big time investors, or
no, mostly mid-size,
really
smalls. People have 5 to 25 houses.
Okay.
And I think if you think about Fairgrove, let's say you and I in partnership own 300 units.
Yeah.
We have day jobs. Our needs are far too great for a neighborhood management company, someone who manages maybe 500 doors. But in the same way, if we called Greystar or JLL, one of the bigs, they're not even taking our call. And so Fairgrove's in that giant white space.
Got it.
And so I think some of our momentum in the market as a result of that
That's where you want to play.
is very underserved.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you don't know how many people and owners I talk to who they're like, yeah, I've had 4 property managers and like, I don't really like any of them. They just like, it's a very tough business to be in. And it's the only reviews you get on property management companies are the people who are pissed off. Like there's very rare property management, if you go on Google, that are like 3 stars and above.
Yeah.
It's like, which is, I'm sure, a very tough thing to be able to have to do, because your recognition and brand, if you're getting organic traffic, is a lot of times coming from the internet.
Yeah. And think of, Old Co's 80,000, right? So you could be fantastic for 81,500. But in my business today, it's the same. Like,
Yeah.
I deliver really good services for more than 10,000 units every day, but we're not perfect.
Yeah.
If 20 of them are upset,
Yeah.
it's very hard.
If you were 22, right, you just graduated college and you want to get into real estate, you don't know what vertical, anything like that, where would you go and why?
Yeah, I would learn operations because, everyone says, well, I want to be a developer, or I want to be in private equity and build these, I want to be on the investment side. But no one's ever, or I want to be a developer, right? No one's ever said, I'm going to develop a 120 unit apartment building and I want it to be vacant. Like, just keep it vacant. That's my business model.
Yeah.
I'm going to build it. It'll be beautiful. And as I said earlier, the business really starts once you close. And so I would you could learn more working for a company like mine in a year. Literally, you would only need to be there a year or so.
Mhm.
So I would learn real estate operations quickly. And then simultaneously you have to learn the language of how real estate capitalizes. So I was fortunate, as I said, to be with companies that I got that in my toolbox in my 20s. I just think of a career, I tell my kids this. I think in your 20s, you want to try everything. In your 30s, you want to leg into something that you're interested in, that you can develop some subject matter expertise in. And kind of your mid to late 30s and then into your 40s and beyond, that's where you're going to really convert all that subject matter expertise into, outcomes, whether those be building a
Yeah.
business, making money, whatever your goal is.
Got it. And when you talk about operations, so one, you could go work for a property management company, but let's say you're you don't have the luxury of having a really good property management company for you to join. Is there other places, tools, like, it seems like to me that a lot of the operations side, you kind of have to be in it,
Yeah.
right? There's a lot of nuances to it. Is there any way someone can learn the operations side of things? Because I'll give you an example. Like, I know how to value a property in the city of Los Angeles,
Yeah.
like the back of my hand. Like, I can do this in 30 minutes. I'll tell you where values are. However, if you had to come to me and say, hey, I need to renovate this whole building, right? I need you to go find my flooring vendor. I need you to go find what faucets I need to put on here, the switches that go on. I could figure it out, but like, I'd have to do a little bit of research. I've never personally needed to flip a unit or find all the vendors and stuff for what I do in my job. It doesn't affect the ability for me to go and sell and market a building. I can learn it, but I have to go almost do that, right? To have that operational expertise. How would you learn operations if you can't do the operations, or is it even possible?
Yeah, I would find that mid-size owner, that mid-size operator in your area. And the cool thing about my view is the apartment industry is like, this is a team sport. Like, no one's got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Think about it.
For sure.
So fragmented. And so just all the attributes we've been talking about. So the apartment industry is very giving in that way. And we all need each other. So I'd reach out to as many mid-size operators in my area, and I would ask them if I could be an unpaid intern. Because, if they're midstream on a building, they need help. And that's how I would learn it. But then the other piece is, there is something to be said about the institutional side that is unique. And, brokerage gives you exposure some exposure to capital markets. It could give you exposure, obviously, to transaction side, which that's very important.
Mm-hmm.
You need both.
Yeah.
They're similar to what I described about my management company. They're kind of opposite. Like they're two sides of your brain.
Yeah. You need to be able to do both.
I don't think you can go wrong with pursuing one first, like learning how real estate transacts first versus how real estate operates second. I don't think it matters which.
Okay.
But I do think you need to learn both.
You need to understand it. Last thing, do you think, because once Invitation, Blackstone, you guys started buying a bunch of homes, people were like, private equity's taken over, right? The big dogs, they're coming in. It's going to be a big conglomerate. That hasn't happened. It's less than 3%, 4% of the ownership, right? Do you see that continuing to where private equity starts gobbling up more and more of these properties because the efficiencies in systems? Or do you think that it'll always be a bifurcated market that anyone from someone who just graduated who wants to go and start owning stuff to the 85-year-old can pick up a new building?
I don't think you'll see enough progress in the systems and the application of operating processes to make it now, okay, great, I can go buy 500,000 houses. I don't think that will help you at the margins for things that you own. I think the only thing that will create a meaningful portfolio increase would be another event. Like if there's another GFC, I'm sure in its progress Invitation, there's tons of large players. They could go buy another 100,000 homes, but the market opportunity would have to be there. So I think that will be the limiter. I think it will stay. Yeah. I think it will stay fairly fragmented. If you look at, as we're talking, Invitation Homes has like bumped around the 80,000 for a better part of 5 years. Yeah. So I think that tells you.
Well, and the other thing with that, and the reason your rent is going up is not because of Blackstone. Like that pisses me off. I'm like, it doesn't make any sense, right? That 2% of the market would drive up 100% of the full market rent. Like that is not how this business works. And it frustrates me because then that downstream effect affects what the regulators do to make these law changes that affect everyone, and like so much more negatively than they understand and imagine, right? And I get protecting the tenant, and I think there's something to be said that, but like the Blackstone is not the reason your rent goes up.
Not at all. It's because you have a sophisticated owner who like is seeing their expenses go up and they think, well, I have to correlate it, increase rent. I think the word is fear. So often I'll be working with a mid-size client of ours and they're like, well, I don't want to raise the rent. And I'm like, but Mr. Smith, like your property insurance is up, like all your maintenance expenses are up. Like we have to raise the rent to maintain the purity of cash flow. And they're fearful of it. And I think that, does keep somewhat of a lid for mid-size operators or small operators. I think the market likes that generally. Yeah. But a larger company knows this to be true. Like you have to increase rents, and expenses have been increasing at significantly higher percentage over the last 4 or 5 years than rents have. So,
Marco, thank you very much.
Thank you.
This was great.
Yeah, I love it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm excited to see what you can do. 30,000 apartments in 5 years.
I love it.
2030, man. It's going to be
coming back.
I love it.
Thanks, Taylor.
Thanks, Marco.
Thanks for the time.